So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That, sorry, that would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, broadcast and recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new media and baseball capital of the world. Go Rays! St. Petersburg, Florida. I well remember my first encounter with wireless internet service outside of my home. It was the Cellular Telecommunications and Internet Association's Wireless 2002 show in Orlando, and I was sent to cover it for Technology Meetings magazine. Boingo Wireless had approached the CTIA just 2 weeks earlier about making Wi-Fi available at the gigantic convention at the Orange County Convention Center, and I was there to test it out. Wi-Fi changed my life, and the magazines too. My cover story on that event was the last issue in the magazine's short history. Anyway, I've been sold on Wi-Fi ever since, and I suspect you'll find my guest today is a big fan of it too. He's Dave Hagan, CEO of Boingo Wireless. Dave, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thanks, Bob. Glad to be here.
Delighted to have you. I actually had to go and look that up because it was so long ago. But
I remember, yeah. No, I mean 2002 Wi-Fi was kind of a radical thing back then.
Now, were you with Boingo that early?
I was, yeah. I was. I've been here since 2001.
Oh, okay, great. It was. I was not a big tech guy at the time. I've always been I've had my Macintoshes for 20 plus years, but was not like on the cutting edge by any means of the whole wireless conversation, and that opportunity came up, and I thought, well, this is cool. And then Boingo was giving away wireless at that show, although not that many people took advantage of it because it happened late. What was the state of the industry at that point? I mean, we're talking 6 years ago, and why was it a big deal then?
Well, the wireless internet, has really been a concept. Back then it was just a concept, and people wanted the power of being untethered, by line or cable, with their laptop. But there weren't really many solutions on the market, and so then Wi-Fi came along, and back then we called it 802.11b, if you recall. In fact, Wi-Fi was kind of a marketing handle that some folks had put on it, but we weren't even sure if that was going to become the way it was identified. That's this was now back 2001, prior to that show. So but as Wi-Fi developed, it became the simple way for people to network multiple computers together at home. So that was the first consumer demand driver was I've got two computers, and in the U.S. I think the average household with a computer has 2.4 computers. So thus the need to connect them together to access the broadband circuit into the home. And so Wi-Fi was just a fantastic solution to do that. Super high speed, very easy to install. IEEE standard, so if you bought Wi-Fi gear, it would talk to one another. So no compatibility issues. And so from that that simple beginning, networking home computers, it really became an opportunity for it to be used in commercial applications. And so really the first locations out in what we would call public space or commercial locations, commercial venues. A couple airports ended up putting in Wi-Fi. Starbucks was an early brand that had Wi-Fi, and this is again dating kind of back to 2001, 2002 time period. So then people started understanding what it was all about, but the technology and the equipment had to catch up with the demand. And so back then laptops didn't come embedded with a Wi-Fi chip. You had to buy a separate card. I remember when we launched the company in 2001, the cards were north of $100. And obviously now it's pretty hard to buy a laptop that doesn't have Wi-Fi embedded. Mm-hmm. So, as consumers started to update their laptops and Wi-Fi chips were embedded, then we just saw this massive movement to wireless connectivity, again, all enabled by kind of the dual thrust of Wi-Fi chips getting put into laptops and then more and more networks popping up literally all around the globe.
Did you guys think in 2002 it would happen so quickly?
You mean to get where it is today?
Yeah, I mean it's now. It's interesting. There came a point where we went from wow, gee whiz, that's cool. I hope one day I have access to it. Now, I mean, you pretty much assume you're going to have Wi-Fi access wherever you go.
Yeah, we actually did think that it would happen. The time period's pretty close to what I guess I would say what we had hoped it would be back then, because we didn't really know. It's always technology adoption is a very hard thing to forecast. But you're right. If fast forward 6 years to where we are now, and you're pretty hard pressed not to have a Wi-Fi signal if you're inside some type of a building or infrastructure. So I think it has matched our expectations. I think what we're really looking forward to now is the next wave, which is Wi-Fi chips being embedded into all sorts of non-PC devices. So the obvious things here are cell phones, so smartphones. Obviously, the iPhone has Wi-Fi inside. Most of the major handset manufacturers are now shipping with Wi-Fi chips. So Nokia has been an early adopter of Wi-Fi into their mobile handsets. Motorola, Samsung, HTC, Sony Ericsson, the RIM BlackBerry. So the Wi-Fi chip, just like what happened in the PC, circa 2001, 2002, that's now happening in the handset market.
Dave, we may have a call here, or this may be a coincidence. Let's see. Hi, do you have a question for Dave Hagan from Boingo Wireless? Okay, and we'll just leave you back where you were. Sorry, Dave. I don't know. Maybe it's the name Boingo, but I've always imagined that this was a fun company to be around.
Hopefully it was and still is. So we take pride in innovation and being a leader in the space, and having this idea of what we call network aggregation, which means partnering with anyone and everyone who is deploying a Wi-Fi network on a global basis. And we have 150 of those operator relationships around the world, and so that a Boingo user, a Boingo account, can literally move from location to location, and hence the sort of the springiness of the name, boing, boing, boing. That was that was where the original idea came from for the name.
And of course, the line you're using these days is "Don't go, Boingo," right?
Don't just go, Boingo. That's right.
What's the growth level of the company these days? I mean, is the world saturated with this already, or do you still have a long way to go?
Well, on the network side, as you mentioned earlier, most places you go to, there's now Wi-Fi, inside the building. So from a network growth perspective, I think we're probably maybe 80% along the way. So, most places have it, whether it's an airport or a hotel or, a coffee house, convention center, those types of places where typically people want to get connected. But on the network side, I think we're getting to relative maturity, if you will. But on the demand side, on the device side, we're just starting. If you look at the numbers in comparing non-PC devices with PCs, so more specifically laptops. There are about 200 million laptops in the world, probably a little bit more than that. But in the handset world, there are over 2 billion handsets in the world.
Wow.
So, a much larger market opportunity, and those handsets get replaced about 50% each year. So there's over 1 billion new handsets sold each year, and that number keeps rising. Mm-hmm. An increasing number of those have Wi-Fi chips. So I just think of it as the second wave on the demand side. So we've got a great business at Boingo. Today we're growing 50% year over year. We're cash flow positive. So, we've gone from early stage venture-backed startup that consumes cash to a good business, a growing business, and a positive income business, to a company that has just an amazing opportunity to help people get these Wi-Fi enabled devices, these smartphones connected to this global wireless internet. So that's the next phase of our development.
Has the change from now I keep going back to this point in time that is a touchstone for me, 2002, but has the change in use from laptop computers getting the wireless to being a BlackBerry and an iPhone world, has that had an effect on the way your operation is set up, or you're able to supply Wi-Fi to any device? It doesn't really matter.
From a network perspective, it doesn't change. The Wi-Fi network interacts with the Wi-Fi chip, but what we have focused on doing, and it becomes even more important in a smartphone world, is on the software applet that makes it easy for you to connect to these networks. Because if you think about the difference between a handset with a small screen, it may have a QWERTY keyboard, it may not. So typing in username and password and typing in your credit card number, through a forced browser or walled garden page within a venue is pretty difficult, much harder than it is on a laptop. And so to eliminate all of that sort of user difficulty, we've created a little software applet, part of Boingo Mobile, that the user can download onto their handset. And once you've set it up, so it has my username and password stored in it, I can just get connected at any of these hotspots around the world, and I don't have to worry about creating a separate account, whether it's an AT&T location or a T-Mobile location or a Boingo location or a British Telecom location, etc. Boingo just makes it easy for you to get connected to that Wi-Fi network. So it's the software development that's been really a big focus of our research and development efforts over the last few years.
I think I always thought that the weakness in the whole system in the early years was that if you desired to connect to the network and to have that Wi-Fi, but you didn't really know what you were doing, it wasn't seamless, and you had to rely on the barista at Starbucks or somewhere else, and those people just didn't know what in the world you were talking about.
No, that's exactly right. And so we've really focused on making Wi-Fi easy, and so that's really our position. We want people to think, when they think Wi-Fi, we want them to think Boingo, and we want them to think, well, Boingo makes it easy for me to get connected wherever I am.
What are some of on the commercial side, so people can recognize as they're traveling? When I'm out and about, what are some of the bigger commercial destinations that you have relationships with, or that your partners have relationship with? So if I'm out and about, where am I going to run into Boingo service?
If you're just out and about town, the two sort of iconic brands would be at Starbucks and McDonald's. Mm-hmm. So those all have Wi-Fi now, or the vast majority have Wi-Fi, and Boingo, your Boingo account works in those locations. If you're traveling by air, you can use your Boingo account in literally 85% of the airports on a global basis. So the airports are very well covered. On the hotel side, the same thing. Most hotels that you would go into, you'd be able to use your Boingo account. So go ahead. It's pretty much everywhere you go, whether you're a commuter, just where you stay within your city. There are lots of places around town to get connected. Barnes and Noble bookstores, Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, down from the larger brands that we mentioned earlier. There are just lots of opportunities where you can just get connected around your community. And if you're a traveler, we specialize in that, and we've really got the travel ribbon, as we call it, covered.
Dave, am I wrong in surmising that when Boingo replaced T-Mobile in Starbucks, that was a pretty big deal in the company?
Yeah, we didn't actually replace T-Mobile. AT&T did.
No?
So yeah, so AT&T won that business, but Boingo account works on the AT&T network.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But still a big deal for you guys.
Very big deal. We've wanted to get our customers access to Starbucks. Obviously, fantastic brand, and as Howard Schultz says, the third place, right? Homework and then Starbucks. So we definitely we wanted to have Boingo users to be able to use their accounts there, and We've consistently tried to do that for the last literally 7 years, and we finally were able to make that happen as AT&T won that business. So I think, kudos to AT&T for having an open network strategy, and they've been a great partner of ours, and we continue to love working with them.
Let me say, if you're listening and you've got a question for Dave Hagan, CEO of Boingo Wireless, give us a call, 646-595-3135. There's a big difference in the way Starbucks and McDonald's treat wireless. I mean, if I go into Starbucks, I've got to have an account. I've got to be paying for my wireless. If I go to McDonald's, it's free. How do you weigh those two? I mean, how do they affect your business?
I actually think it depends. Most of the McDonald's are pay networks. I think there are a few where maybe with a purchase you get free access, but for the most part it's pay. Different setups. Where in Starbucks, there are ways you can get free if you buy their loyalty card. Starbucks card, then you can get some access on a daily basis. So, and you see the different business models in Wi-Fi developing. The carriers like to bundle it with another service. So, AT&T bundles it with their home DSL service as an example. I think you'll see the cable companies starting to come into Wi-Fi. Cablevision is deploying Wi-Fi networks, Wi-Fi access points on Long Island. And so, I think you'll see all sorts of different business models end up being developed, whether it's a bundling strategy, a standalone strategy like Boingo. I think you'll see some free advertising supported or sponsor supported models. But in general, I think that's healthy, keeps the ecosystem lively, and keeps innovation happening. So I think it's a good thing.
Is it a big deal between fee, and I want to make FEE, and free, FREE, in terms of what you do?
Pay versus free. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're more on the pay side. So you sign up for Boingo, and then you can use Boingo for pay. We have done some free ad-sponsored sessions in the airports that we own and operate. And so, customers tend to like that, and we use the ad sponsorship to defer part of the cost with the access. The challenge is in those models is making it economic so that it actually is a sustainable business. And I think if you've been out and used some free networks, you may have experienced sort of the reaction, well, this is free, but it's not very good. And I like the free part, but I don't like the poor quality, or it's slow, or if there's an advertisement on the front end, it doesn't load very quickly, and sort of bad user experience. And so what we've really focused on is we need to have a great user experience, and then that needs to be an economic model so that we can continue to invest in the infrastructure to continue to make that a great experience. And I think you'll see there's some fallout for the really small operators who have been trying to make free networks work, because they start out without a lot of bandwidth. They end up attracting quite a few users, and that user base grows, which then reduces the quality of the network, right? More people sharing the same network, it gets slower, but they don't have a revenue model or a business model that allows them to continue to invest in the network. And so you end up with a lot of unhappy users using a really poor network, and that doesn't benefit anyone. So the challenge, I think, for those folks is to figure out, is there an advertising model that will work? Is there a sponsorship model that will work so that they can maintain quality? And as I said, we've done some experimentation there, and it's tough. It's tough to make the economics work. That's the challenge. I think if you look at other businesses that have other access businesses that have tried to go free, it's pretty difficult. You remember the free ISP days?
Yeah.
From Net Zero, and there are certainly a bunch of others. It looked like a really interesting model back in the bubble, but at the end of the day, didn't really pay for the cost of providing the service. So those the free ISPs either went away or became for pay models. The Muni networks, Muni Wi-Fi networks, you saw the same thing happen. There was cities, there was high interest in cities trying to bridge the digital divide. They wanted to bring free Wi-Fi to their communities, but at the end of the day, I think the operators realize that we can't really provide an adequate service by not charging for it, and so most of those have gone by the wayside as well.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I know where I am in St. Petersburg, Florida. It seems like it was about a year or so ago. They were putting out for a bid, and there were companies coming in, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to build this free wireless. So anytime you're downtown, you'll have." And then it all seemed to have gone away. And I think the biggest example may have been Philadelphia. Wasn't Philadelphia going to enact a big system, a big free Wi-Fi system, and then it just kind of crumbled suddenly? It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and they're not alone. It was Philly. I think Anaheim was a leader. San Francisco with a Google Earthlink partnership made a lot of headlines probably now 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, the networks either didn't get built or they got built and then were pretty quickly shut down when the operators realized there's not a business model here. So that's the challenge. Everybody loves free, but someone's got to pay for it. Someone has to subsidize it. So the question is, what's the business model that works?
I guess when Google backed away from establishing free Wi-Fi networks around the country, that should have been the tip off to everyone else that it was not going to work.
Right. No, I think you're right.
Dave, I've got a question from speaking of free, the free web chat that accompanies Mr. Media Interviews. One of our listeners wants to know, as a user, he says, I'm still frustrated going from place to place. How about some more interoperability?
Well, that's I assume the caller is not a Boingo user, but that's exactly what we do. So Boingo has what we call roaming relationships, but interoperability is a part of that. And so your Boingo account will allow you to access Wayport, IBON, AT&T, T-Mobile, in their airports, Surf and Sip, 150 different operators, literally around the world. So, that's our role in the ecosystem, and so I would encourage you to give it a try.
That's been a big change too in the industry, hasn't it been? That the Wi-Fi carriers, such as Boingo and others, they're operating more hand in hand, hand in glove, if you will, as the cell phone companies had to learn to do years ago, because all of your customers were unhappy that they'd go from place to place and they'd have to start over again or have multiple accounts.
Yeah, that was really Boingo's reason for being. Sky Dayton, our founder, that was his vision for the company is you're going to have this unlicensed spectrum, this Wi-Fi network capability, just growing all around the world. And the challenge is that these are individual networks run by individual operators, and so the real consumer value comes from making it easy for me to move from one network to another. And so that's what we're all about at Boingo. That's what we do. And you're right. The analogy to the cell phone business is a good one. When 20, 25 years ago, in fact, I think the anniversary of the first cellular call is now just about 25 years ago. There was a party a couple weeks ago honoring that event. But in the early days of cellular, you could use your cellular phone or car phone back then only in your community. And if you went outside of your community, then it probably wouldn't work. And then, of course, the cellular carriers put together roaming agreements. So then the challenge was, well, technology works, right? I can now drive outside of my city or travel outside of my city, and my phone will work. But then the problem was the commercial one, which is the roaming rates are so high. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was AT&T with the one-rate plan probably 10, 15 years ago that really simplified pricing, and that's when the cell phone usage just took off. So, in any networking business, right, the power of the network is based on the number of different users that can get onto that network and, the network effect. And that's happened in cellular, it's happened in Wi-Fi, And it's really what Boingo's role in the ecosystem, the Wi-Fi ecosystem, is all about. Being able to use one account, one credit card account, one username, password, anywhere you go in the Wi-Fi ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, that's really made the difference in terms of travelers and making it easier to use these services. One of our guests again in the web chat asked a question that I was wondering about. What about WiMAX? And is that technology? Is it going to happen? Is it going to be useful? Will it affect your networks if so?
It is happening, and I would say it is useful. So Clearwire has been the early leader in WiMAX in North America. Craig McCaw's company. They recently did a merger with Sprint and the Sprint Zome network. So that joint venture is coming together, and I think they just deployed Baltimore as their first joint market. So WiMAX is rolling out. It's probably in 25 or 30 markets in North America. Tend to be smaller markets to start with. That's where Clearwire's focus has been. And it's good technology. It works. It's much like cellular, though it has higher bandwidth. But also building penetration is a little challenging. So Wi-Fi in a building will continue to be the stronger network to get connected to. So think of WiMAX as another cloud network, much like a cellular network over a city. And Wi-Fi as a spot network, hotspot network, if you will, inside buildings, where people are stationary.
Any concerns that all this, I don't want to sound like a kook here or anything, but all this Wi-Fi flowing through the air, the WiMAX, et cetera, that, on top of all the cellular and the radio waves from, the 20th century, that, any of this is dangerous to people, as we keep adding to what's going through the air?
Well, I'm clearly not the right person to ask. I'm not, I'm not a doctor and not a scientist, but certainly there have been lots of studies on it, and I don't think there's been anything that has been definitive that has pointed out that based on the low power that all these networks run on, these devices run on, that there's any human health risk. But again, okay. I'm probably not the right person to answer that.
No problem. I just thought I'd throw that out since we're chatting. Well, just a couple more minutes, Dave, if you will. What's ahead for Boingo? What's the next evolution of the service? Either that the consumers will see, or on the network side.
Yeah, the next evolution is what we talked about at the beginning of the interview. So moving beyond the laptop. As Wi-Fi chips get put into all sorts of different devices, whether that's a smartphone handset or a gaming device, or frankly, any other networked device that has a Wi-Fi chip in it. And so our vision is to be able to get all these various Wi-Fi enabled devices authenticated onto this global network that we've put together through partnerships. So again, we've had a great time surfing the first wave, which was laptops, and there's just a much bigger wave coming, and that's all these different Wi-Fi enabled devices. So pretty exciting times here at Boingo, and look forward to watching that all come together.
I'm thinking it would be silly of me not to ask you a financial question or two before you go, seeing as how we're doing this on a day when, again, the market was down. I don't know, last time I looked, 400, 500 points. What's 400 or 500 points among friends? But how well positioned is Boingo for all the upheaval? And is Wi-Fi one of those places in terms of internet service where it's still growing so much that no matter what's going on out there, that maybe you're well positioned no matter what?
Yeah, and I'll answer it sort of in two parts. One, just the general health of the company. We're growing very rapidly. We're cash flow positive, so we're generating cash flow instead of consuming cash, and we've got a very strong balance sheet with cash in the bank and no debt. So, in terms of earlier stage companies where with the private equity markets and the venture capitalists really tightening down on investments, Boingo doesn't need any additional money to continue to thrive and survive. So, from a state of the business, we're in great shape. And the second part of that is back to devices. And what's interesting is Wi-Fi chips are getting embedded into smartphones and other devices. So they're coming to market. That goes beyond the economic turmoil that we're in. And so, think of it this way: if global handset sales drop by 20% over the next year because of tough economic times, so people hold on to their existing cell phone a little bit longer, there is still a huge number, right? It's over 1 billion new handsets that'll be sold, even with a decline, and we're going to ride that wave. So, to a certain degree, the growth opportunity with dual mode handsets is such that it's not really driven by the economy. So from that perspective, we're in good shape. Certainly, if business travelers slow down, our laptop business could slow down a little bit as well. But we're again well positioned and generating cash flow, so we're prepared to weather the storm if we need to.
Very good. Well, folks, check out Boingo Wireless's services when you're on the road. You may be doing it and you don't even know it. You can also visit the company's website at www.boingo, B-O-I-N-G-O. I always feel like I'm going to have to sing a song when I say that. Boingo.com. And Dave Hagan, thanks so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Good luck.
Okay. You too.
All right. Folks, for dozens more celebrity and media newsmaker interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my previous conversations with people like Billy Bob Thornton, Cheryl Hines, Jeff Garland, Robert Schimmel, Bruce Davison, and even, yes, Kirk Douglas, among many, many others. Please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, digitaljournal.com, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, Odeo, the Kindle Reader, or iTunes. And if you've got an idea for a guest for Mr. Media, email me directly at bob@andelman, ANDELMAN.com. As always, thanks for joining us today. I always appreciate when you give up a little piece of your day to spend it with us. Come on back and see us again soon.